Hey guys, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam, and in today's video I want to comment on a thought that has been playing in my mind for a while as I follow the YouTube sphere and try to get as good information as I can for my own self-cultivation process. And I've been doing that for quite a while. Actually, I follow a number of teachers on YouTube who I would say similar to myself are out there trying to share the information about awakening and self-cultivation. And I have found through the years that there is a certain type of need to make your way of taking in information from such teachers broad enough so that you develop for yourself a body of knowledge that allows you to manage your own process, as opposed to making yourself dependent on a single teacher or a single line of approach that may not be as complete as it could be, and might leave you with a limited view of what the process is about. Now, I think it's almost by definition that no teacher can bring it all to the table. We, by necessity, have to take a certain line of communication, a certain view and approach to the self-cultivation process. But I think that there are certain limitations that are that can be very detrimental to audiences. Certain information that, if missing, can seriously limit your chances of awakening to your non-dual reality or to your real self as pure awareness, and to integrate that also into your daily life. So what I wanted to do with this video is to analyze a little bit what those limitations are, in my view, simply to raise them to awareness so that you are a little bit in a position to judge whether the teachers that you follow are really giving you a fighting chance to awaken, a real fighting chance to cultivate your mind and body in a way that you come to realize your real nature, and in a way that has a real bearing in your day-to-day life. In order to do so, I might mention a few names, and my mention of those names in this context might sound a bit critical, so I will of course mention them, especially for the parts of the process that I believe is missing in their communication style or in the things that they share. But before my cat jumps, I need to counter it. But keep aware or try to stay aware that I have a huge amount of respect for these teachers, and that this is simply to try to make the message more complete, as opposed to having a go at them. Most of the teachers that I will mention have an enormous audience. Their degree of self-realization is usually far, far higher than my own. So this is by no means some sort of a kind of trying to make a name for myself by being a contrarian or anything of that kind. It's simply an attempt to try to make the story more complete. So perhaps the most critical take that I can have is the teachers who have awakened to the real nature, but who mystify the process or place the process in a context that is all driven by grace, paradox, and a circumstance in which there's nothing to be done by the individual. Now, I've made videos about this in the past, criticizing non-dual teachers, and I've been very careful to state that what they're communicating is at the same time correct but useless. Meaning that the truths that they are speaking about, saying, well, there's nobody here to do the work and there's nothing to do, is ultimately correct. Unfortunately, this kind of message leaves the listener in a position of perhaps suffering from lack of fulfillment in life, real curiosity about the kind of attitudes, actions, and practices that they can take in order to awaken. And it leaves you simply thinking that all you need to do is sit around and wait for things to happen. That you have really a 0 degree of influence, not to speak of control, in the process. And I believe that rather than blaming this on ill intent, I believe this has to do with the fact that for many of these teachers, awakening happens spontaneously. In other words, the factors that led to their awakening aligned so that either through a little bit of practices or no practices whatsoever, they found themselves awake. And asking them for advice or consider them to be effective teachers is therefore a mistake in my view, because it would be akin to asking a flower how it bloomed. If a flower could speak, it would tell you that it just did it. It just happened. Right? There's nothing to be done. I just awoke, I just bloomed, and you need to let the process unfold. And whilst from their subjective point of view, everything they say is correct, I believe that we are better off, let's say, supporting ourselves with teachers who have an understanding of the neurological processes that take place when awakening is happening, so that we are able to tweak things to the left or right in the way that we use our awareness, in the way that we do bodily practices, for example, so that we can lay the ground for awakening to take place. So I would compare that to asking the gardener how it makes flowers bloom, rather than asking the flower how it bloomed. The gardener would tell you how they prepare the soil, the kind of seeds that they chose, perhaps the kind of enrichment that they did of the soil, whether they use sunlight or how much water. Those factors, whilst those factors have the potential danger of making you think that you are in full control of the process, which you're not, nevertheless give you a way to be engaged in your process of self-cultivation and stack the odds very much in your favor for awakening to take place. Right? So whenever you hear teachers of the non-dual type, and there's a Jim something, I forget their names now. I don't follow them too much anymore. But there's a couple of guys out there who have this there's no one here and there's nothing to do type of thing. And they have this sort of annoying little smile when they confuse the people that are asking them questions. I just don't think that's very helpful. So I would stay away from that unless you feel you're ready to hear a very direct message, in which case you're not, they have nothing to bring to the table to you anyway. Then you have teachers who follow a certain line of communication in which awakening is seen purely as a spiritual endeavor, right? So you would have teachers who believe that if you only surrender yourself to grace and let go, then it'll happen. And some of them do this sort of satsang type of format in which they're speaking to an audience in a room, and sometimes people come up to the stage and say, well, what is it that's bothering you right now? Can you just sit with it right now? Can you just be okay with it? And then people go like, oh, I didn't know it was that simple. And they go like, yeah, you see, you just need to sit here and let it be. It's all great. And when you engage in this process, and when you also read about the neurological processes that are taking place, the psychodynamic processes that are taking in place for awakening, you come to realize that it is far more complicated than that. Of course, the active ingredient is to just observe. There's no denying that. But when you start to really be quiet and just observe, the amount of psychic repressed material that comes to the foreground is enormous and very, very difficult to deal with. You may be dealing with things about trauma that you sustained in your life but you are trying to also, with awareness, colonize very primitive survival mechanisms in your own neurology. You think that's easy? It's not about just, speaking to a guru and going like, oh, I didn't know I had to just sit and let this be as it is. Yeah, in principle, that's true. But when something really huge about shame or, your own value as a person, or your mortality, or the fact that everything is decaying and you will lose it all, like, so the impermanence of things hits you in the face full on, and you can feel it in the heart or the solar plexus, then just sitting suddenly goes immediately out the window, and you are completely at a loss on how to deal with it and how to navigate those waters, which you will definitely have to do if you want to have a full awakening, a full non-dual state that is sustainable. So I have a problem with teachers who spiritualize and simplify the whole process as just allowing things to be and see how simple it all is. I think it's complete nonsense, and I think it's cruel nonsense, actually. And it may have to do a little bit also with the fact that they might have been really ready for that part of the process to be indicated to them by a guru or whoever, and then they got it, right? Can somebody be ready for that and just get it? Yes, that is also possible. I would venture saying that for the vast majority of people, that is simply not the case, because the level of identification and unclarity about their psychosomatics makes that route completely unavailable, and a very cruel route, because you walk out the door thinking, oh, she or he just taught me that all I needed to do was sit, so now I guess my problem is solved. And immediately you go home, your usual problems hit you in the face, and you will not be able to use that simplicity. It's you just haven't cultivated it, so it's not available to you. I believe that teachers who follow the just talking type of methods can be very persuasive, and they can be very clear spoken. In this camp, you would have perhaps people like Angelo Di Lullo, who is one of the people who has done a lot to democratize awakening, perhaps more than anybody else, actually. I think he is clear spoken. He is non-denominational in the sense that he doesn't take a particular camp of being, this or that. Although he does follow a little bit of the Zen methods, and really believes that asking what is mu would be really helpful. I can't really relate to that if I'm honest. But he's very, very good. You would also have someone like Rupert Spira, for example. Now, I also do a lot of just talking if you watch these videos, but in the work that I do behind the scenes with people, I am incredibly somatic and tantric in my approach, so that the sense gates, and especially embodiment, has a massive a degree of importance in the work that I do. Because words, clear as they may be, simply don't go deep enough, especially because they're engaging with the thinking part of the mind, which is the part that we want to try to educate and bypass. And so that's one element. And secondly, because in doing the somatics and the embodiment kind of work, you start to create a very strong container for the emotional work to be done, and you start to refine your perception. And refinement of perception is crucial in the clarifying of perception, so that fear can be dealt with by clarification, as opposed to through courage or bravado or anything of the like. It's clear perception that disentangles identity, disentangles the self, disentangles karma. Is nothing else. So that the work of embodiment, if taken far enough, can refine your perception so that you can work with your perception in a completely different way. Without this, you are left with listening to people who are giving you amazing advice, but ultimately you are relying on just getting it to a big degree. And whilst, again, that might happen, right? some people just light up and go, oh my God, I had never realized that what you're pointing to is something that I had always been experiencing but couldn't relate to. But if you do the embodiment and the more tantric kind of work, you once again stack the odds massively in your favor. And not only that, but the work of embodiment makes you far more wholesome and far more effective and balanced and harmonious in your daily life. So in fact, the work of embodiment can go hand in hand, and perhaps should go hand in hand, with the work of pure jhana, pure meditation, or simply spoken word advice, so that things can actually integrate and the rubber can actually hit the road in your daily life, as opposed to having the kind of realization that just makes you go uppy into the world of pure awareness, in which you risk becoming, completely depersonalized, completely derealized, because you have severed the connection with the lower chakras. Lower chakras, embodiment, are not there to be bypassed or ignored. They are there to be colonized by higher intelligence, okay? So that you do an integration of up and down and you become an integrated individual. So these are some of the things that I've seen out there that I believe need to be taken with a pinch of salt. At the end of the day, you are fully responsible for your awakening journey. A guru can't do it for you because the factors at play are too many, and you are always better off creating for yourself a body of knowledge that is as well-rounded as possible, so that you understand the purely mystical, but you complement that with knowledge about psychosomatics and embodiment, so that you can complement that with psychological knowledge, which can definitely add to the understanding of the process, so that you can complement that with knowledge about how things like the way you think, your intent, your behavior can complement the entire process, right? So I believe that exclusivity in approach, or at least exclusivity in knowledge, can be a serious problem, actually, because it might make you a little bit too one-dimensional in a process that is more like a diamond that has different facets to it. And it can limit how far you can get, because you won't know why you are hitting certain limitations in the process. Sometimes devotion is what's lacking. Sometimes correct psychological understanding is what's lacking. Sometimes embodiment, just sheer raw embodiment, is what's lacking. Sometimes what's lacking is the ability to allow the mystical to arise, because you're being too practical with the other previous things that I mentioned, right? So see this as an approach that is like a diamond, as I said. I've been doing a review of the Pearl Beyond Price, like A.H. Almaz. He calls his approach the diamond approach. And I think that's a very clever thing to do, because it deals with how faceted this work is. It's very, very complex. A human being is a multidimensional system, or a multidimensional entity. And therefore your learning ought to be equally multidimensional. That's not to say that once you have learned this multidimensional aspects of the path, that you then choose a method and you go all out on that method, because depth of method is equally important. You don't want to be digging 20 wells that are 1 meter deep, that you want to dig one well that is 20 meters deep, right? And yet you could go for what in management is called the sort of T-shaped type of knowledge, which is to say you have a broad understanding of things, and you are deep in your practice by choosing a method and really dedicating yourself with everything you got to that exploration. So I hope that sheds a little bit of light in terms of how to inform yourself and how to navigate the process, to never discount the value of pure mysticism, never discount the value that psychology can bring, like psychosomatic or / tantric or embodiment type of work can bring, and even the work that you can do in terms of self-improvement or just improving behavior, for example, and things of that kind. It's a broad spectrum because you are a broad spectrum system or entity or individual, and you want to make a well-rounded body of knowledge that can help you with this process. And having said that, I'm very curious to hear in the comments about how you relate to this, whether you've gone in some of these routes where you hit a snag perhaps, and how you've gone about overcoming that. And as usual, if you believe that this is helpful information, then your liking, sharing, and subscribing makes the channel far more available to others who may also benefit from it. I'll be back with more videos pretty soon, and until then, thanks for listening. Cheerio and bye-bye.